Hello, it's November 2024. Now, this video is going to tie into another video I did not too long ago, but I'm going to get into that towards the end of this video. But I really just want to focus right now on is the chapter of my life with the woman that I married, and that spanned from 1997 to 1998. And new people to my channel, this is the first video you're watching. The woman that I married, we met when she was being sex trafficked by a worldwide agency, and in the end I ended up living overseas for almost a few years. And when I had left to come back to my country in Canada, she would eventually be picked up again and trafficked to Africa. Now, during this time, after she was picked up again, I had gone overseas. Now, before I went overseas, I was interviewed by a newspaper, and they did an article about my story, and it was very hard to get through. I remember at some points I was in tears about everything. I had no idea what was going on, and by this time I knew I was flying over there and I didn't know what to expect. All I knew at the time was Interpol was looking for her, and went through the whole interview. And by the time the article had come out, it was either the day that I went there or the following day when I arrived overseas in Europe. Now, while I was over there, I had a copy of the article, and I can't remember off the top of my head here if I had a copy and I brought it with me or someone had sent me a copy, but I know I had a copy because I had given that copy away while I was there. And I think someone actually sent me through Express Post a copy of the whole thing. And I remember the title had read, "Man Heads to," name of country, "to find his missing wife." I'll never forget that, but I'll get into that. And I remember when I arrived there, I went down to, or at least close to her town. And when I got to the town, I had met with some people there. Now, there was some serious tension between her family and myself, and that's a whole different story. And what I'm about to share, I wrote about in my first book. And it's kind of, as I'm recalling it, I just kind of impacts me a little bit, just remembering everything. I did write about it back in 2010, actually prior to 2010. And I had online journals as well prior to that, where I talked about it as well. And I remember being taken to the apartment that we had. Now, it was on the side of a house. So, and the house was actually converted into a business. And we had this little strip on the one side. And when you open the front door, trying to remember, maybe like 5-6 feet from there. There was 3 steps, and then it went to the door. It would be on the side of the wall to go into the apartment. And I remember when I was being taken there, first thing I noticed was one of her favorite slippers on the middle step, facing the opposite way, upside down. And I remember thinking to myself, this is not right, because these slippers were her favorite slippers. And I remember one time here in Canada, we went somewhere and she forgot her slippers at a hotel, and we had to turn around and drive all the way back to grab them. That's how important her slippers were. There's a story behind it, so don't start judging about it being silly, whatever. But anyway, so I remember seeing the slipper, and just the way it was positioned and everything else, I knew something bad had happened. The person who was taking me into the apartment said no one was in there, no one touched anything. And I just remember I'm still kind of in shock of everything and what was going on. And I'm like, okay, fine. And they opened the door, and there was a little hallway, and maybe about 10 feet. And then to the left would have been to the bathroom, and right to the right side would have been to this little small kitchen. And then through that would have been the main living area. So it was like kind of like a bachelor apartment that we had. So I turned right, went to the kitchen, and I remember there was a cup of tea with the tea still in it. It was dried down, and there was still food on a plate. There was 2 pieces of toast, and one of the top piece, there was some butter on it, had some bites out of it. And I remember looking at that, thinking like something happened really quickly. And then as I turned to take a step into the main living area, where we had a couch that turned into a bed. It was open as a bed, and the sheets and the blanket and everything was just stretched from the top of the bed onto the floor. And I just stood there looking at everything, and I was in so much shock. I remember I was standing up, crouching down, standing up like a yo-yo, just trying to comprehend everything. And the person that was with me, they started to cry because they seen the distress that I was under. So, I'm looking around trying to figure everything out. There was some stuff that was we had a little dining room table to the left of the door when you walk into that space, and things were knocked over because we had some stuff sitting on it. And I just looked around like I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I think I was asking this person, like, what happened? Like, what, and they didn't know. So anyway, we ended up leaving, and then we went somewhere, and there was a few other people waiting, and we were just talking. And I couldn't believe what I had just witnessed. So eventually I did talk to the woman I married on the phone 2 times. The first time she wanted to see me, and then we'll just say whoever was in the background said no. And listening to her voice on the phone, she was having some sort of breakdown. And I said, okay, we can talk later. Just everything's going to be okay. And we hung up. And I did talk to her the second time, and I wasn't allowed to see her. And then I found out through someone else that she was shipped off to a small country in Africa. It was during this time that copy of the news article that I had given to someone and eventually ended up leaving. So when I came back, the very first thing I wanted to do was get another copy of that, because to me, I don't know, it was just something that I wanted to have a copy of. And we did a follow-up article saying that my mission was unsuccessful and discussing all that. So when I had the next copy of the article, the headline had changed, and it had changed to read, well, it's the copy that I ended up carrying with me until it was starting to disintegrate, and then I scanned it, and that's the copy you see here in the overlay. And eventually it just disintegrated, and I had a digital copy of it that I scanned. So fast forwarding many years, it was around, I think, 2013, I had asked a friend to get me another copy of it. Now by this time it's on what's called microfiche. Now today everything is digital and everything else, but where the newspaper was on some sort of microfiche or something, and they ended up printing off a copy just on standard normal white paper as you do at a print shop, and they sent it to me. And there was something in the article that I needed at the time for the things that I was dealing with out west. And when I had received that copy, it said, man heads to name a country to find Joy with his wife. Now I'm just going to pause here for a moment. When I received the copy of the article, when I came back, the headline had changed, and I dismissed it as just I was under a lot of stress. I didn't remember the original article properly or something, and I just kind of dismissed it. But I have the scan copy, and when I looked at it, I had called my friend, and I was very angry. I said, what kind of joke is this? What are you sending me? And they said, it's no joke. I noticed it too. I said, well, why didn't you tell me? It's like, what do I tell you? Would you believe me? Like, how would I explain this? I just sent it to you. And I remember thinking, who writes Joy? Like, what is Joy? Anyway, I had put it back in the brown envelope and piled it put it in a pile of other papers and everything else, and that was secured for, I forget, a few years later. And then I was going through all the papers and I found it again, and it had changed for the fourth time now. Initially, when I had noticed the change to Joy, I thought, somebody's messing with my life. Somebody has that much power or something. They're messing with my life. I had no idea what was going on with regards to that, but I was dealing with so many other things at that time. I just had to kind of like, okay, this, I don't know why this is or who's behind it. But when I pulled it out after being tucked away for a few years, that copy that said Joy, it had changed to read Joy, and what you see in the overlays. And I'm thinking, there's no way. And I had called this friend and I said, do you remember what it said when you sent it? He said Joy, and I said, yeah. And I took a picture, sent it, and like, they don't understand what was going on. I had no idea what was going on. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around all this. There's no way that somebody had snuck into where I was, dug through everything, and swapped it out. I'm trying to figure this part out. And then I came across the topic, the Mandela effect, and then everything clicked. Because initially when I had, just before I flew overseas, when the woman that I married went quote unquote missing, I said to someone, I said, something's wrong. This is not how it's supposed to be. I had no idea. No, just kind of thought, maybe it's just a stress, but I had 4 versions of that main article. And what really makes this crazy is the follow-up article. When I came back, they took a picture of me, and that became embedded in the original article before I left. And some of the contents of that second article after I came back somehow worked its way into the first article. And it's like, this is impossible. Now, initially I wasn't thinking anything woo-woo or some might call supernatural or anything. I'm just trying to wrap my head around all this. But the whole idea of Mandela effect came about, and I heard about this years ago, and different variations, different descriptives that it was called and everything else. Never gave it much thought. It was just one of those things. I don't know. I didn't know what to think of it when I first heard of time shifts and everything else. So that really is my connection to this thing called the Mandela effect, my personal connection. I can prove 2 of the 4 versions of the article. Anyway, reiterating the story that I've shared many times with the woman that I married and what happened there, and then kind of segueing into something woo-woo. That's all I really have to say about it. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me, when is it going to get easier? When you die.